enjoy with us today. Kim brings over 20 years of experience spanning brand management, agency leadership, and marketing consulting. She's currently the Chief Growth Officer at Odele Beauty, where she's building and scaling the marketing team. Before Odele, Kim worked across some of the most recognizable brands and campaigns at General Mills, Edelman, VaynerMedia, and 10th Avenue Holdings. Kim's work has spanned industries from food to personal care. As you guys saw some of those goodies out there by the front, that is all thanks to Kim. So she's worked on brands like Yoplait, Chex Mix, 7-Eleven, and PepsiCo. So joining Kim in conversation today is Giorgio, T25, who, as many of you know, is a second-year student and also co-chair of the CPG and Retail Club. I know she's excited to dig into Kim's insights. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to her. So please join me in welcoming Kim and Julia.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marina, and thank you all for being here. 2 orders of business before we get started. First, I feel personally obligated to provide a brief disclaimer. I did not prepare my hair this morning with Odele products, so if it looks subpar, please blame it on the harsh Hanover winters and perhaps the lighting, but definitely not the brand and the product.
I also did not prepare my hair with Odele products this morning because I did not bring them with me. So
we'll grab our goodie bags on the way out. And secondly, I just wanted to say thank you all so much again for being here, and for the committee and the co-chairs of WIB for putting on such an incredible and important event, and what is sure to be just an amazing day. So I'm not sure if I'm allowed, but please, can we just give a quick round of applause to them? It's a very special event and special day, so thank you for all being a part of it. And Kim, thank you for being here. This is awesome. We are so lucky to be here chatting with you. And just so you all know, this is going to be a very conversational, very casual event. So please just raise your hands, chime in with questions, run up here, grab the mic, whatever you want to do to get involved. We want your energy and questions, so keep them coming and keep thinking of them as we go. But without further ado, today we'll explore Kim's career journey, her insights on purpose-driven brands and beauty, challenges and opportunities in scaling a brand, and how private equity fits in. We'll also leave time, as I said, for Q&A at the end or throughout, so just jump on in. So Kim, again, thank you for being here. Let's start at the beginning. You've had quite an interesting career path, after Tuck, before Tuck, and everywhere in between, moving from traditional corporate roles to purpose-driven entrepreneurship. Can you walk us through your journey and how you thought about especially leaving the traditional corporate ladder?
yeah, absolutely. Well, I was born in Ohio. It was a cold day. Not without her back. So yeah, pre-Tuck, I worked in consulting and worked in more of the soft, squishy stuff. So people, process, org effectiveness, change management, career branding. When I got into Tuck, they said math camp. You will be going to that. Great. It was very good for me. And here, I really, through those experiences, I had gotten to work with a number of clients that were in the consumer space and the retail space. I also worked with insurance and financial services. I got a little bit of everything, but started really paying attention to what I was into and what I was drawn to, and got to Tuck and was really drawn to marketing and retail and those really consumer-driven businesses. I flirted with consulting very briefly because that's what you do. You have to flirt with consulting, and I was like, nope, I get way more energy walking up and down the aisles of CVS and looking at all the different brands and products and what that looks like, and I'm going to focus on that. So I did my internship at Target, which was amazing to get that retail experience. And then just really, that model of hub and spoke, right? Like general management meets something, meets merchandising, meets marketing. That was an amazing role. Marketing is not at the center of that hub in a retailer. That's merchandising. It's more of like, I really became drawn to CPG. And so I wanted that marketing, that art and science, and the general management. And so when I was a second year at Tuck trying to decide what I wanted to do, I had this, frankly, feeling of paralysis. This is terrifying. This decision is gonna impact the rest of my life. This is a big decision. And I somehow had a pep talk with myself and was like, or it's just, what's the next couple of years? And where can you go? You've learned so much at Tuck. Where can you go and just learn? Where can you go and get a great secondary education or post-secondary education? What's your postdoc? And so for me, that was General Mills. And really, the sort of brand academy mindset, the training, the big classic CPG was really compelling to me. And it was an awesome experience. I was there for 7 years, so much longer than the 1 to 2 that I had mentally planned. That is 7 Minnesota winters, which we'll take on Hanover head to head, I will tell you. I got to work on Trick cereal as my first brand. I got to work on Yoplait when Chobani came in and destroyed tens of millions of dollars of value of our business, and watch what happened when a business fell to a rising star. I worked on Betty Crocker when Pinterest was brand new and everyone was using Pinterest, but like no one was shopping in the baking aisle, and everyone's showing all the stuff they're baking, but no one's baking. Like, how does that work? And so figuring that out. And then salty snacks with Chex Mix. And, for me, it was amazing, amazing learning. I think around 10 years ago, I had this moment, and you guys know what bugles are? Like the witch finger, right? So I was in charge of the salty snacks business at General Mills, and that included Chex Mix, amazing, Bugles, Gardettos. And we had this moment. So Bugles is a capacity constrained product. A Bugles, I'm giving way more detail, but roll with me. The Bugle is made from a pellet. There are only a finite number of pellets. So every time you get access to more capacity of pellets, so go to your supply chain class, right? What are you gonna do with it? How are you gonna maximize value from that pellet? And the company's answer was, every time there are more pellets, let's do another flavor for Walmart. Just give Walmart more Bugles. They have cheddar nacho. What about nacho cheddar? What about the 15th flavor, right? And I was like, so this is, again, dating myself here, but it's like 2014, and I'm like, you guys, there's this thing called Facebook. We can target people who live within a mile of a Walmart. Wouldn't that be great? I found an ad from our friends in Canada. We can get the rights, we can do this, and spend whatever, $50,000 on targeting people who live within a mile of a Walmart. And my leadership looked at me like I had suggested we put $50,000 in a big pile and light it on fire, because why would you ever spend money on that? Now things have changed. We know better, different. We know more now. But it was this moment for me of, I think I'm right, but I didn't effectively influence the organization because my intuition was right. But I need to get in there and take this apart and put it back together again, just like I did at Tuck for 2 years, to understand how to influence some of these things. I want to stop looking up and worrying about this up or out ladder and start looking around and across. And so I'm gonna get off of this ladder, and instead I'm gonna start playing Trivial Pursuit. And so I got my MBA chip and I got my CPG chip. What else? And so that's why I went to VaynerMedia and got social media and digital and paid. I went to Edelman, and Edelman called me, and I was like, I'm not a PR person, I don't know. And they're like, but we need people with strong business understanding who really understand integrated marketing, and you will learn the media chops as we go. Okay, cool. I got to work with Unilever and some of the biggest brands in the world. I went to the money side of the equation. Edelman was amazing. I really wanted to go a little bit that client side, and I had this opportunity to go to an investment firm. You think about your investing in brands, and what does that investment committee meeting look like? What's the, how are they making decisions? How can I help build these brands to that entrepreneurial lens? And then Odele came along, and Odele was founded by 3 women, one of whom I knew back from my General Mills days. So networking always wins more than LinkedIn applications. And she, frankly, literally cornered me at a dinner party and said, we're expanding, we're growing, I really, really need your skill set. It's kind of like working on a school project, and it was in the early days, but it's pretty cool, and I think you do really well here, and I think we really need you. And so that was a little over 2 years ago. I joined Odele, it'll be 2 years ago tomorrow, and that's the journey.
That's amazing, and it really speaks to the courage you had to take those steps and kind of jump off that traditional corporate ladder and take some risk. I'm curious, and I apologize I didn't prepare this question, but it made me think. I know, I'm putting you on the spot here. While you were here at Tuck and while you were exploring where your life was going, because I think some of us are sweating because it's a little bit triggering. I think, we see our lives ahead of us and we're like, where do we go? What do we do? We're meant for big things, but what are those big things? And it feels a bit of, a weight on our shoulders, though exciting, a bit anxiety producing. were people asking you, like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Were people putting you on the spot and you felt that great pressure? Or did you just allow yourself to just sink into it and take it as one day at a time, a learning process?
I want to say I was super zen about it, and my husband, who's sitting here, who did not know me then but knows me now, is like, I promise you, you were not chill at all at any of this point in time. And so I can look back and reflect and say, well, just like one step at a time. No, I was super stressed because it's this, I took a huge leap of, I quit a decent, full-time, well-paying job to debt finance an MBA right before a massive recession. It was terrifying, and with high interest rates and all of the things, and I did it as a leap of faith, and I believed in the leap of faith, and I did believe that it would pay off. And like when I went to math camp, and the very first exercise they do is they're like, here's how we're going to show you how the MBA is going to pay off, and I was like, okay, I can like breathe a little bit. That was amazing, good programming. But it's hard, and I think there's also this, like, you look around, right, and you see what everyone else is doing, both here and your friends elsewhere, and what is happening on LinkedIn and what is happening on social media, and it is so easy and so tempting to say, well, they're doing this, I need to do this by the time I'm here. I need to be at this point by my 10th reunion. And I would just say, the more you can just let go of that and breathe and like do you, because there's no single path. There's no 10 paths. Like, there are literally infinite paths. And I think, to me, it's more about building that skill set and that toolbox, because also the world is changing so fast. Like, the job you might think you want in 10 or 15 or 20 years from now might be a totally different job in 10 or 15 or 20 years from now. And so I think it's just much more about, how do you learn and grow and refine your skill set and get the reps and go through the hard, shitty times that you, like, working on Yoplait while Chobani destroyed us was not a fun experience. Truly, I've made some of the best friends of my life and professional career. I've also never worked so hard for so little in terms of like financial reward of working on a growing business. But God, I learned like how decisions are made and decisions I didn't agree with and what I might do differently in a different situation. So I think, I don't know if this answers the question, but I think just take it all in and just know it doesn't all have to look or be perfect or exactly what you thought. I didn't know when I was at Tuck that I'd be back X number of years later. I can't do the math right now, but it's a lot, in this particular seat. But I did have a bit of a leap of faith that the path would lead me somewhere interesting, and it has.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. So diving into purpose-driven beauty and industry trends, purpose-driven brands have taken center stage in beauty recently. What does purpose-driven beauty mean to you, and how does Odele embody that ethos?
Yeah, so it's such a good question. I think, okay, so does anyone in here have like a favorite beauty brand? Anything? Anyone? Yes, please. What is your favorite beauty brand? Okay, why?
Because it was around like when I was first learning how to use makeup and put it on, and I feel like there's almost a nostalgia element to it for me, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been using the same concealer and the same foundation since I was 15, and I know that it like works for me.
That's awesome. Does anyone else have an example? Anything? Yeah.
I like Superfood sunscreen because the like unseen, the texture of it, and it was like the first sunscreen that I tried that was like that. And now there's like dupes of it everywhere, but like they're like the leader on that like lighter textured sunscreen.
Awesome. Is it one more? Anyone?
I like Tata Harper.
Yeah.
Because they're a set wet local. And all their stuff is natural. It's grown in Vermont, and it's really easy.
Does it work?
It does. I have tough skin, so it's not, if you're not good with oil, probably not great for you, but yes.
That's awesome. I ask a little bit because I think this space, like, we all use consumer products every day, be it food or personal care or beauty. And I think like kind of the first rule, and I believe in purpose-driven marketing, and I'm gonna get to that. But I also think like the first thing is, it's kind of like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like, it has to do what you want it to do. If it's food, it has to taste good. If it's beauty, if it's hair care, if it's skincare, it has to work. The proof is in the goop. And so I think that's like the first layer. And then I think for us, like the second layer is, I think our stuff works really, really well. Hair care is insanely complicated, which I can talk about too. But, you know, if we were like a really high performing product and a really like kind of lame or ugly or nondescript packaging, you probably wouldn't notice it, pick it out, want to see it, whatever, right? And I think that's like that design element is sort of the second piece, especially in a space like beauty. And so when it comes to purpose, like, yeah, I believe in it. I think that there's this classic, like, your purpose is why your brand exists, right? And so for us, why we exist is, and we look at our founding story, is to take things that were exclusive and make them accessible. And so you think about prestige. You guys know it's really easy to spend $40 in shampoo. No judgment if that's your thing, but you can, like really $50 upwards, like you can spend a lot of money on this stuff and that's totally fine. We don't think you should have to. We think that you should have access to those prestige products, and part of that access is because they're where you're already shopping, because they're at Target, they're at CVS, they're at Ulta, they're at Amazon. Part of that access is our founders are all moms, and so there's a lot from a regulatory perspective. I could not in my marketing communications be like, safety, they're safe, that's a trigger word. But for us, our values were our founders wanted products they felt good using with their kids and testing with their kids. Like there's an aspect of that. And then, you know, the accessibility of like really beautifully designed products. For me, where I get excited about purpose though, it's not just why we exist, but, and by the way, like I don't know how much anyone knows about Unilever. They've been on a tremendous purpose journey, and their former CEO, Paul Pullman, is an absolute standout leader in this space. Like through doing a lot of work with them, I'm really a believer in this idea of like, Unilever calls it your sustainable living plan, your sustainable living purpose. Like, I believe that brands and businesses can do well by doing good. And I think that there is this layer of, you know, from a brand purpose perspective, how can we impact society? Like, what's the impact that we can have on society, but also that drives equity for the brand and that drives the business? And I think that's really important. And so for us, making accessible but a bit exclusive is, like, that's why we partner with the Minnesota Lynx, which is the WNBA team, because women's sports are historically underfunded. They are under-resourced. They are not paid the same as men. That's why next weekend, one of our founders is partnering with the Jeremiah program, mentoring single mom entrepreneurs and helping them get their business dreams off the ground, and we're supporting the organization. And so I think purpose connects the dots in all of those things, but where brands can fall down, if you know, you saw an ad for like a new lipstick and it was like, we're made with great intentions, or like we like give back, like that's cool, but like, do I like the color? Does it moisturize my lips? Does it do what I want it to do? And for an early brand, you know, we have to balance that, because there's also only so many messages we can serve you. I don't know if you all know, we have really short attention spans, like really short. And so it's rounding that picture out and sort of knowing what are the things we're doing because we think they're the right thing to do, that are maybe beneath the surface, that aren't our number one priority to shout. We'll get there. Because right now, like, if my campaign is we're gonna, you know, get along with your hair, I gotta get you to the right product. And by the way, if the stuff out there is not right for every hair type and we know that, reach out to me on LinkedIn or email or whatever, and I will help you find the right one.
Yeah, that's great. And it kind of segues into my next question, which is, I just believe consumers are so confused these days. There are so many brands on the market. There are so many different missions that founders are trying to communicate and brands are trying to address. How do you think about competition in the space and also conveying the right message that will resonate with the consumer that you want it to resonate with? And have you had success? Can you talk about success, failures, things like that?
Yeah, totally. Oh, it's such a good question, and it's so hard. When I came into the brand, and we still experience this today, so we have 3 founders, which is a lot of founders. They're wonderful, with all like different kind of ideas in some ways of what the brand is and what it stands for. And the result of that is we have this absolute embarrassment of riches of what we could say. And that is awesome. And when you are building a brand and you want to be distinctive and memorable, and what do we stand for? And like, what's the one thing? What is the one thing? And like, all the things is not the one thing, I promise. And so it's been a big journey. I think one of the big pivot points actually is that if you go back and read early press on the brand, so the name Odele, part of the name came from, it was a riff on Norwegian, which I do not speak Norwegian, so this will be poorly pronounced, but it was Odele, which means to share. And so the initial, if you go back and read like the 2000 launch, they're tagging on this brand, the idea was it's for all who share your shower. We want products that are shareable for everyone in the household. And that's super interesting. But what I believe and what I've learned is that I think that takes you to a place of like, it's a universal remote. What that says is if everyone in your household has the same hair, it'll work for all of them. But we also know that families are multicultural and very diverse, and not everyone has the same hair. I do not share shampoo with my husband, absolutely not, because I'm not using the Head and Shoulders, but love you. But we're working on stuff for him. But but I think that was a really big moment of, we also designed by hair type and texture. And so when we started going through our fundraise and the investors were asking, hang on, you say that your products are shareable for all, but you design by hair type and texture, how do those things work? First I said, thank you, investors. I have this question too. This is a really good one. Let's talk about it. And so it is this, we are on a journey to find the right message and to find the right way to break through, because there's a lot of confusion. We know there's the overwhelm at shelf. We also know the beauty industry, this space, there's sort of the beauty industrial complex and the beauty influencers. And that is one segment of the market. But we also believe that our core consumer is kind of this yes, loves and appreciates beautiful things and can appreciate the design, but is not thinking about beauty all the time. They're not hey, I wonder what's new at Target in hair care. They're I need shampoo. What's the shampoo that's right for me? And there's a little bit of that exploration, but it's less of, we have to find that balance of, we want those megaphones, because they are, those beauty influencers, they are megaphones. We want them to talk about us. But the real core of who we're trying to talk to and what we're trying to do is people who are I don't have time for that. I don't have time for 17 steps. What works? Just tell me what works. I will use it. We're gonna move on. And so I think it's, we're still in a space of, and will always be, test and learn and trial and error, and have moved away from some of that. We want the brand to be highly shareable, but I'm not gonna promise you that the products that are out there are right for every single person and that you should share them with everyone you live with, because I don't know. Hair is different. Hair is personal. It's one of the things I miss dearly about food, to be totally honest. Do you want strawberry yogurt or blueberry? Oh, you didn't like that one? Great, you're out $1. Try a different one. And this is, if your hair wants volumizing and you buy the moisture repair, you're not gonna like it. It's not gonna be the right chemistry for your hair. And maybe we've lost you as a brand new brand. You just think the brand sucks. And it was more about, no, this just wasn't the right product for you this time.
So fascinating. And it seems like it's always a trade-off between so many different things. In that sense, how do you think about profitability versus staying true to mission? And have you had to make trade-offs in that way?
Well, I think profitability is part of our mission, but yes, it's a very good question. I think that from our founders, our founding philosophy was really rooted in the idea, and again, this is something we don't have the testing and claims to say externally, but it is an internal value and benchmark that our products work as well as the prestige brands that are 2 to 3 times the price. And so that right there, that's a pretty big claim. It's a pretty big statement. And so what that means for us from a business model perspective is that we are always going to invest more in the product. We're going to put the good stuff into the product because we think you deserve it. Our margins probably aren't going to be, and definitely aren't at our price point, what you're seeing from the brands of Sephora and some of those things. And we are okay with that because we believe that there is a mass business to be had in this masstige space. Where we do start to have conversations is we have certain products that aren't as margin healthy as others. And interestingly, they are some of the ones that are really well known and that bring people in to the brand. And so that's a calculated decision. And again, we're doing the math, but we're saying we're okay with this being a little bit of a loss leader because it really captures people and we think it's a great first entry point. And if we lose a little bit of money or we don't make as much money on it, we don't make as much money on it, we can live with that because we're still growing and bringing in new households, and we think the lifetime value of that will pay dividends I don't mind giving up a few pennies on this particular product or the other. And so, but we stay very, very true to performance, because going back, if it doesn't work, why bother? You know, it can't just be vibes.
Yeah. You definitely bring the vibes though. I want to work there with you. It's awesome. And something that, it's funny, we've been talking about this in our food and agriculture class, where we're studying current issues in the food system, where we discuss, you know, consumer adoption, but it's got to taste good first. It's got to feel good. It's got to have price parity before consumers are willing to take that plunge. So I can imagine you're, you know, toying with that every single day.
Well, it's true. And I think to that point too, like you look at beauty, like you guys have, if you've seen our product, you know we're in plastic bottles. Do we love that? No. Are we going to be the ones that completely change what supply chain looks like for mass hair care? Also no. We've seen things like, I don't know if anyone has tried a shampoo bar. They're not great. Like that's not, you know, maybe, but like, or concentrates, you know, it has to work. It has to be something. And so I think there's also this, we believe that we can do the most good by being a commercially viable business. And so part of that recognition is progress over perfection. And for that, again, do we love being in plastic? Not really, but that is the industry standard and that's what consumers are used to. And yes, we use PCR and we try to do all the right things, but we're having really deep and thoughtful conversations around where and how can we lead versus where do we need the literal largest mega multinational corporations in the world to like take the lead on that one. And we would love for them to figure some of that out.
Yeah, and do some of those internal conversations center around the words like greenwashing and, you know, impact? I came from impact investing prior to Tuck, and those were the internal conversations we were having as investors, and we'll get to investors in a minute, but I'm curious, are those the words that you were talking about? Sustainability, greenwashing, impact?
100%, and I even like I'll add one to it, which is clean beauty. Like what does clean mean, right? And we think about that, we struggle with that, and that's like have a lot of questions around what's table stakes. Is clean table stakes? I don't know, it kind of depends on what you mean by it. I've done a lot of consumer testing on this in the last 2 years, and for a lot of consumers, clean, we've done like clean versus sulfate free, and sulfate free actually really resonates because it's like a specific thing, but also very few people could tell you why is sulfate free good. We just know it's good. It's like when in food, when like non-GMOs came out, or when people started talking about gluten-free, or very few people were celiac who needed gluten-free, but it like feels good. You're like, oh, it's non-GMO, it's gluten-free, it's whatever, right? And so I think we are struggling with that. I think that we, again, try to be really thoughtful, and I think a lot about the greenwashing. I think my 5 years at Edelman gave me different perspective with a lot of this too, of purpose-driven brands and what you need to be doing and saying, even if they are not things you talk about, what do you need to do to feel good about the things you are saying? And so we do continue to pressure test on that. It's really, really important because we want to believe it. We want to believe, you know, what we're putting out there in the world.
That's great. And in terms of actual, you know, effective and purpose-driven campaigns, you've been a part of quite a few. You played a huge role in shaping some incredible CPG campaigns, from the rise of Tazo Tea to the Pure Leaf campaign, empowered women to say yes to workplace opportunities. I'm curious, can we talk a little bit about which campaign may have meant the most to you?
Yeah.
You're welcome to pick a few if you.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to pick. I think that the work that I did at Edelman with Pure Leaf, you guys like iced tea brand, it's part of PepsiCo. They had this beautiful campaign called No is Beautiful, which was absolutely incredible. It was created by their ad agency. We had nothing to do with it. And it was great because it was this, you know, it really spoke to both the products, like no artificial colors, sweeteners, flavors, preservatives, so no, but also this cultural moment. And so particularly marketing to women, as women, where and how do you say no so that you can say yes to other things? And we loved the campaign. When we came in as Edelman, you know, and really started talking about how do we bring this, how do we breathe more life into this in terms of earned and integrated media opportunities, the thing that struck us was no is awesome. No comes at a cost. No is not free. And so we commissioned research that showed that every time a woman says no in the workplace, it costs over $2,000 in economic potential. No is a place of privilege. And for women of color, it costs even more. And so we had this opportunity to do something about that. And so we created a fund. We partnered with Allison Felix, the track athlete who famously said no to Nike to launch it, and created the No Grants. And so gave women an opportunity to apply in a low lift enough way to be able to say no. So to apply for a grant to cover the cost of that no, so they could say yes to something else. And it's just one that I'm really proud of that, because I think it's amazing when brands take a stand. I think brand purpose is awesome. I also think that there are actions that brands can take that are still meaningful and relevant, that can drive equity, that can become known, that can put their money where their mouth is, and breathe life into some of those beliefs. And so it was just a really fun and fulfilling one. We partnered with an NGO to administer the grants, and just seeing, frankly, some of the lives touched. That one wasn't measured in we sold this many more bottles of Pure Leaf, but we measured it in terms of lives impacted by the program and what these women were able to do, and they anniversaried the program and kept it going. And so that was a really big one for me.
It's incredible. And it makes me wonder, do you have any advice for those in the room that, we want to continue taking action toward missions that are meaningful to each one of us, and perhaps we might not have the opportunities through our workplaces post-Tuck to really engage in those opportunities? Do you have any advice for us to find ways to make progress towards our missions that are dear to us?
Yeah, I love that. I think that some of it is about your own choices, and we only have so many hours in a day, right? And we only have so much time. And so I think that the first thing, I do wonder about in the workplace, how can you bring some of that when and where that intersection is there, that makes sense. And so again, I think about prior jobs where there were women in business or women in marketing clubs, and I was passionate about gender equity, or Edelman had the various affinity groups. I think there are things like that. But I think it's also, there's so much opportunity. I think the hardest part, at least for me, or what I see, is we kind of live in a world with a lot of problems and a lot of opportunities. And I think it's, for me personally as a human, I get really, really overwhelmed of these are big, complex things. Where and how do I start? How do I help? And an amazing conversation with a friend and former mentor of mine who was just pick one, just what's the one thing? And I think that's a really good starting place. For her, it was misinformation and just the role of the media landscape and misinformation, and that's what she's digging into, and I really admire that. I don't know, I spend a lot of time with work, and with my wonderful husband, and tap dancing, and making phone calls to my legislators, because that's really, really important to me. There have been points where I found other things in food insecurity, and how can I dive in there, and working in soup kitchens. And so it also doesn't have to be the one thing you do forever, but I think just picking, you don't have to do it all, you can't. And so find the thing that is most resonant, that is frankly the most accessible to tap into at any given moment.
Thank you. So let's talk about those big bad investors. Stride Consumer holds a minority stake in Odele. How has having a PE partner helped the company and shaped the company's growth strategy? And what are some misconceptions, and have they been proven wrong?
Yeah. So when I started at Odele 2 years ago, as I said, it was kind of like working in a school project. We're sitting around this conference table. There were 8 or so people at the company and some contractors. And pretty quickly we went into a fundraise, and it was a game-changing thing. And so working on the pitch deck and working on the materials, and how do we have these conversations, and we were really fortunate, and also we're really good at what we were doing, I will say, but we had conversations with some of the most prominent investment firms out there, and it was awesome because it was also chemistry. It was also, who do we want to work with? Who's going to push us? We fell in love with Stride, and I was a little skeptical going into it. I had been at an investment, you know, a sort of interesting investment place in between Edelman and Odele that had a lot of challenges, and I saw some things, you know, I learned a lot, but I saw some things, I don't know if I love how this works. And you read a lot about private equity, and I think private equity can, you know, there's a rap out there. I'm obsessed with these people. I keep the head partner who's on our board, I keep being like, are you sure you didn't go to Tuck? Like, you're a Tuckie. And I think he's offended at this point because he went to Michigan, and I'm like, Michigan's great, but like, Steve, you're a Tuckie. Like, we just need to talk about that. But they've been amazing. And I think that for us, it was finding the right part. Like, so we were founded by 3 women who didn't want to be in corporate America and were kind of tired of being told what to do and being pushed to the side, is really the crux of it. And so the worst, scariest thing would have been, hey firm, come in and tell us exactly what to do and, you know, be all up in our business. And so we found people who were true partners, and they push us, they challenge us, but they listen to us. The operating partners that I work with are an amazing phone a friend resource. There are times where I have to say to them, I don't agree with you, and here's why. And I get to do that. And there are times where I say to them, I need you to convince the founders of this thing. Can you like back me up on this? And they do, and that's great. And so it's just, it's really smart voices at the table. They have a tremendous track record, and they've done this before. I think the one, you know, nuance that's really hard is where we play. So they have an incredible portfolio. They have food brands, and they have prestige beauty. And there is amazing learnings from both of those. We are really kind of neither of those things. And so we have to pull from the mass playbook, and that some of that is food, and we have to pull from the prestige beauty playbook in terms of how we show up. And so there has been a lot of navigation of like, hey guys, like that is awesome that worked for Chomps. I love Chomps. Chomps is amazing. Can we talk about how often people are in the market for meat snacks? Because it's a lot more than shampoo. Like, you can buy a lot more meat snacks. You grocery shop more often, and you eat more of them than shampoo. So like, yes, let's think about how this works for our business. And again, I get to have those conversations, and some of that is in myself in this role, finding my own voice, and which is I have a cold today, but finding my own voice and confidence of like, I hear you. Can we just also add this additional layer and perspective in, and let's talk about it? And a lot of times we're like, oh yeah, you're right, that's a really good point. Great. And so it's you know, we're working on it. We all have the same objectives, and that helps a lot.
It's amazing. Okay, it looks like we're close on time. So I want to open the floor up to questions. Yes, Gayatri.
Hi. So over the past couple of years since the pandemic, there's been a huge uptick in spending on women's health and wellness products, and in general, I think the consumer has become more conscious of what they're purchasing and how that's impacting their overall health, and not just, you know, their skin, for example, their hair, or one component of the body. I'm wondering, to go back to your point of clean beauty, how does that play into the ethos of Odele, and how do you see that changing? Because I think there's just this huge influx now of investment in women's health, in wellness products, and looking at a lot of consumer brands from that lens.
Yeah, so just to make sure I understand the question, so thinking about the rise of women's health and wellness, and it seems like sort of shifting preferences in the space because we're all paying so much more attention to what we put in and on our bodies. Is that?
Yeah, so how does Odele position itself within that landscape, and or is it positioning itself within that landscape at all?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, you know, I often think about this category. Do you guys know the thing in real estate where it's like you can have price, location, and amenities, and you get to pick 2? I think this category is kind of the same. And so you can have stuff that works really, really well. You can have clean ingredients, or you can have a price point that you can afford. And it's really, really hard to get all 3 of those. And so for us, we're not saying we do all 3 of those absolutely perfectly. There are compromises, but we believe that we sit at the center of that triangle incredibly well, and do so in a way where you shouldn't have to make the trade-offs of, do I want ingredients that I feel good about, or $11.99, right? Like you should have, do I want clean ingredients, which shampoo bar is awesome, or do I really want it to work, and do I want what I want it to do, right? And so we do think that we sit at that intersection, and the feedback and, when we understand what's ownable about the brand. And I think for us, it's doing so in a way that really comes in a beautiful package and in that design element, but it's that design without the underpinnings of performance and these other qualities is just vibes. So the vibes got to be right, but it is that, we want to back it up. And so I think it's also a journey, and it's this, we talk a lot, we've just sort of stated our own corporate values, and one of them is progress over perfection. That's P-E-F-E-C-T-I-O-N. There is a missing R. And that is because when the brand first launched, the Air Dry Styler, which you guys all have or are getting, talked about a perfect air dry, but the R was missing. And that was like at year 1 or year 0, right? And the founder laugh about it. It's sort of like nobody's perfect, and so it was great. And it's such a good case study because I think in this space too, it's really easy to get hung up on but we're not this, but we're not this, but we're still in, but we have. And it's like, you know what? We're on a journey, and we're going to keep doing better and making it better, and we're going to be open about that. But nobody's perfect.
We need to get t-shirts.
So for me personally, my hair feels like my brand. I'm wearing my bun most days. I have very curly hair. I've never straightened it. I use pattern by Tracy Ellen Ross to really hold my curls. How do you perceive beauty and identity, and how's your brand position?
Yeah. So how do I perceive beauty and identity, and how does the brand position it? I love that. By the way, we have some curls things in the pipeline, and are looking for product testers. So hit me up. We should talk. So we launched a campaign last year called Get Along With Your Hair. And the thing that I love about it is it's this idea, so hair is emotional. If you guys have ever watched a makeover show or something like that, it's always yeah, do whatever you want to my makeup, sure, clothes, but don't touch my hair, it's my hair, don't touch my hair. Or I have a friend, Mike and I have a friend, an improv friend who was diagnosed with cancer and was worried about going through chemotherapy, and she was going to use her hair, and then she found out that the cancer had progressed so far that she couldn't get chemotherapy, and her first thought was, I get to keep my hair, even though this is farther along. And so it is entirely emotional. And when we launched Get Along With Your Hair, the thing was, it's a personal journey, and it's one that we're kind of here to celebrate the ups and downs and the twists and turns, and it's not perfect, and it is personal, and some of the dinner table conversations we've had as a brand on tell me about a fight you had with your hair. Tell me about your best hair day ever, and where were you, and what was the water like, and what was the humidity, and right, we know these things. And so I think that identity, I really believe in, we talk about ourselves as an inclusive brand a lot. And I think that means inclusive in every way. And I think that means too, our ethos is also very come as you are. The first thing you said, we were I didn't use your product, I don't know about my, and I'm no, my hair doesn't, I don't think it looks great today, I don't know. And when I first joined the brand and went to a dinner with one of the founders, I was I don't know, my hair, is it okay? And she's it's great, it just come as you are. It doesn't, I think that, there is it's so personal. And for us, we want to help everyone feel the best version of themselves, whatever that looks like. But we're also, and I think with that, it's let's keep it real. We're not, another tiny anecdote, I was at I stay with a friend when I go to Minneapolis, which is where the company's based. She has very straight hair. And in her shower was our curl defining shampoo. And I was Teresa, who is using this? I don't understand. She has kids. And I was she's well, Carter, her son, she's well, he kind of wanted to define more curl in his hair. And it's not magic. He does not have curly hair. This is the wrong product for him, right? So how do we help him get to the right one? Because I think there's also, for many of us, I think as women in particular, we so often have wanted what we don't have. You have straight hair, you want curls. You have curls, you want straight hair. You want that, and we can all want that, and there's lots of technology and tools out there that'll help you do whatever that is, but I think we believe way more in how do we help you make the most of what you got and feel good about it and make it as easy as possible, knowing that your hair and your hair might not be the same amount of easy on any given day. And so how do we at least make it easier,
Good question. We have time for, yeah, go ahead.
Our previous speaker, Rochelle, talked about how sometimes the job is telling somebody that their baby is ugly, and I feel you coming into a small company with 3 founders and being have the conversation while maintaining a great working and personal relationship, because it's such a small company, you can't really like run away.
Oh, my friend, welcome to my life. That's all the time, always. It's really interesting. I think that when I think about marketing, I love the art and science of it. Science is my native language, truly. And we have one of our founders is this incredible creative visionary. She's really like a chief creative officer, and that is not. I am never going to be the one that's like, let's adjust the lighting in the photograph. Like that's not my thing. It's hers, and that's amazing. I think what I've had to do in this environment is really approach it with curiosity, first and foremost, and always. Of tell me why you think that. Help me understand. What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? And then also really bringing my own perspective to the table. And a lot of times that is, that's really interesting. By the way, I just did some research and learned that like people don't, like the sharing value proposition isn't really what's gonna drive and grow the brand. And since I know we both want the same thing to grow the brand, let's talk about some learnings that like will really help do that. And so it's incredibly delicate. There's a lot of, I feel like a kind of a diplomat most days, but I'm encouraged by the fact that I work with really, really, really good humans, first and foremost. And we really do all have the same objectives, which is to continue growing and scaling this brand. And when you can start, that's a really easy, common understanding. When you can start there, we might not always agree on the how, or we might not always agree on the details. And in some of those cases, I'm sort of like, this is not a battle I'm gonna fight, but I am gonna fight this other one because I believe that this will materially change the value of this business, and we need to talk about it. And so some of that too is just, again, for me, finding my own voice and courage and confidence to say, I don't agree, and I understand and respect your opinion, and you are a founder, but I disagree, and here's why.
Awesome, thank you so much. Kim, before we wrap up, I just wanted to give you the opportunity. Is there anything that you haven't had the chance to say, or anything that we didn't cover before we give you a huge thank you?
Oh gosh, no, I would thank you guys so much for having me. This is amazing. I am just always, like, I love talk, I love coming back, and so I'm grateful for the opportunity. I also love connecting. If anyone wants to reach out, I don't know if we have my email address or LinkedIn or whatever, but like, please feel free to reach out. I love having conversations. I love supporting. If you need someone to tell you that it's going to be okay and you don't have to climb a linear ladder, I'm also really, really, really good at that. And so yeah, just thank you guys, and good luck to all of you and all that's ahead.
Thank you. You are so cool. I can say that. Thank you so